Nefertari D Vivi, Nefertari D Cobra, and Sabo, Sad Boy, are all new additions to our DSM family, along with 6 brand new silhouettes of very old characters, many of whom look like legendary Pokemon, and a shocking love affair between 2 very unlikely and 2 very age-inappropriate characters. I mean, that's what I thought anyway, but then I looked it up, and apparently Wapol is only 29 years old. I thought the dude was in his late 40s or something. But I just don't know how Oda keeps doing it. Each of these Reverie chapters keep topping the former. And this chapter starts out with a very profound statement from one King Cobra: "No one is ever Pant." And look, he's not wrong, no one is ever Pant. Not even Kelly Funk, because even he becomes a jacket. But the ensuing discussion, it blew my tiny mind brain. Also, this video is sponsored by Opera GX, the exciting customizable web browser for those who are thinking of breaking up with their old, boring, and thoroughly un-anime-focused browsers. Opera GX allows you to be as original as your favorite anime character. Because think about it, do you want to be stock standard isekai protagonist 1 through 9? Or do you want to be that solid 10 weeb Giga Chad? So this is my Opera GX browser with the anime mod installed, which includes custom background music, keyboard sounds, a dedicated wallpaper, theme and colors of the browser, opening and closing tab sounds, and this is only roughly one of a gazillion choices available at the GX store. But aesthetics aside, why use this? Well, the reasons. One of the things I love about this browser is that you can detach any video into a delightsome maneuverable satellite frame, along with inbuilt sidebar access to Twitch, TikTok, Instagram, and all of the other social places. Plus, the synchronization feature allows you to import your previous browser data quicker than any anime time skip, which are traditionally very quick, hence why we use the word skip. You can download Opera GX using my link in the description, which is also a very special link because with this, you'll be able to see the latest Grand Line Review videos in your GX corner. This is truly the pinnacle of what the web browsing experience should be. So do that thing, but for now it's back to you, me. But the ensuing discussion, it blew my tiny mind brain. Mostly because Emu says a lot and I have no idea what voice to use in my mind. With most characters, it's pretty easy to conjure that mental voice. Like say Vegapunk, you automatically know what a wacky old Japanese man sounds like. Or at least I do, because I am an experienced weeb. But Emu, I have no idea. How do I even read this dialogue? For now, I'm going to assume that it's a surprisingly cute voice, because Emu seems to refer to themselves in the third person as Mu, which is, well, that's kind of adorable. Just like how itty bitty Emu sitting on the throne looks like a baby in their dad's comfy armchair. But to contrast that, Emu appears to use very fanciful language. So in my head right now, I guess what I'm picturing is a baby performing Shakespeare. I really love the shot of Emu talking down to Cobra with the full perspective of the empty throne. It's such an effective illustration of power and how insignificant both Cobra and even the 5 Elder Stars are compared to Emu. There is no equivalence here. You're either Emu, the immortal god king of the world, or you're nothing. And I also think I need to praise the acoustics of the throne room, because from this angle, I imagine that Emu would need to quite literally be shouting to even be heard by Cobra and the 5 elders. But not only do they hear each other, but we receive a relentless bombardment of important information, such as Emu being the name of one of the 20 kings, which may give us the answer as to why there's only 19 blades scattered around the throne, because Emu sitting on the throne would complete the symbolism without needing to give up a weapon. And that makes sense because if Emu was one of the 20 kings, then he certainly was not considered their equal. Emu then does something a little bit cheeky by teasing us with the revelation of the will of D before promptly restating everything we know about it. For a brief second, I got ever so excited, and then I was swiftly smacked with the exposition equivalent of blue balls. But that's fine because a later revelation more than makes up for it. I find it interesting that Emu kind of gives Lily the benefit of the doubt, stating that, she did an accident, resulting in the release of the poneglyphs into the world, which was the absolute worst case scenario for us, the world government. And I think that Emu is being extremely generous there by not outright accusing Lily of sabotage. I mean, what even was that accident? Did she trip and fall into the cubes hard enough that they scattered throughout the world like Dragon Balls? But deep down, Emu already knew the truth. And I suspect that there was a bit of denial happening here because he didn't know for a fact whether or not Lily was a D. So there was a certain benefit of the doubt being given for one of the founding monarchs of the world government, which Cobra then proceeded to ruin by stating, Nefertari D Lily. And holy crap. Less so for Lily and more so for Vivi, who is now essentially Nefertari D Vivi. This is one of those turning points in One Piece where rereading the manga will never be the same again. The implication here, of course, is that Cobra is also a D, which is probably why as soon as he reveals his heritage, he is mercilessly, I don't even know what to call what happened here. He was mercilessly arrowed, mercilessly impaled, but impaled by what? I guess if you're Cobra, it doesn't really matter because it looks painful as hell. It reminds me a lot of the attack that Gecko Mora Moria used on Oars Jr. during Marineford, that shadow that pierced his body, and they both give me the sense of a phantom stomachache. But here's where things start to get murky and a little bit confusing, because I don't think that this was an attack from Emu. The angle of attack shows the mysterious arrow coming from Cobra's left side, which according to how the elders are standing, I think implicates Saint Saturn. And I'll get more into that in a bit, but having brought up the elders, mate, these may be Oda's wildest silhouettes to date, somehow both vague and yet oddly specific, as well as both terrifying and hilarious. Although the funniest part to me is that Oda is now not content with introducing new characters with silhouettes. No, Oda's silhouette addiction is now as such that he has gone back and turned old characters into new silhouettes. I guess you could say it's a form of narrative recycling, but we can almost certainly state which silhouette belongs to which elder star, because Oda was kind enough to only portray them from a single angle, which I believe makes Saint Saturn the silhouette that looks a bit like a depressed Onigashima, possibly indicating some sort of devil fruit, which I think is further enhanced by the idea that he is the most likely suspect to have attacked Cobra. So that arrow could instead be a tail, like a very stereotypical cartoon devil tail. It makes me pretty damn excited to continue Egghead Island, because now we know that Saint Saturn isn't just there to chill and eat snacks. Kizaru is theoretically there to protect him, but after seeing this, look, I don't think Saturn needs it. Mr. Blonde was our open mouth silhouette, which is by far the weirdest one, and reminds me a lot of the G5 Marines being covered in Smiley's weapon on Punk Hazard. So it's slightly confusing thing with this one, or at least I was slightly confused. At first I thought this was the same silhouette on the empty throne because I only saw 5 silhouettes in this shot, but I think Blonde Elder is on the floor in this shot because you can see a separate figure, and it would also be very rude of him because in this position he would practically be teabagging Emu on the throne. Samurai Gandhi is probably the most intriguing of all because he's the one who looks like he has the awakened cloudy neck rest effect happening, as well as the only one who still looks like he retains some aspect of humanity in his silhouetted form. I imagine that a lot, if not all of them, are mythical Zoans, but the thing is that these silhouettes are just vague enough that a lot of them could be other classes as well. Except for Big Bird, I would bet ever so many units of currency that this is a mythical Zoan, and this would be the elder who looks like Santa. A very surprising transformation that legit makes him look like a Ho-Oh. If you showed me this specific silhouette out of context, I would 100% believe it was a Pokemon. And finally, Gorbachev to me looked a bit like an elephant or a mammoth type thing at first, but then I realized that this crescent trunk thing was actually just his outrageously large mustache, enlarged to even more outrageously large proportions. I think he's going to look out of this world wacky when we actually see the designs. In fact, they all are. What is happening here is madness. They're going to look ridiculous. They're the main villains of our series, and they're going to be absurd, and I'm all here for it. Although my favorite part of this section is Sabo's face surrounded by the silhouettes, because he just has this look that says, "Mate, I was not prepared for today." And speaking of Sabo and Cobra, they do the anime thing. You know how characters always find time to talk even though they're milliseconds away from being attacked? That's what they do here, reminiscing about Luffy. And you can also see the exact moment where Sabo's photo was taken, which I assume was by Wapol's Dendemushi, because he's the one who contacted Morgans with the specific information surrounding Cobra's death. There was also a very cute moment where we had a flashback within a flashback, and Sabo gets dubbed as an honorary D, now being known as Sadbo. And why not? It perfectly fits the theme of found family within One Piece, because even though Sabo doesn't have the bloods of the Ds, he did become the brother of 2 Ds and has now also inherited the will of Nefertari D Cobra. So from here on out, to me, Sabo is Sadbo, very much the other side of the coin to Luffy's Joy Boy. But Cobra then diligently recites Lily's letter to Sabo, which is partially obscured by a mighty roar, although it's hard to tell which of the 6 shadow beasts the roar comes from. But full credit to Cobra, he went out as expected on his own terms. He could have tried to escape with Sabo, but instead he prioritized the future and sacrificed himself to allow Sabo to escape. His last moments were also spent standing, which I think is very powerful, using every last bit of his life's energy for this final act, as opposed to being in a wheelchair and needing to passively accept death. At the same time, Wapol was peeping through what I would describe as some sort of reverie glory hole, and just like that, Wapol has become one of the most important characters in all of the One Piece, because there's a grand total of now 2 living beings who have illegally gazed upon Emu, and I think that using Wapol in this way is genius. I've seen a lot of people very impressed that this random character has popped back into the story out of nowhere, but thinking about it, Wapol was really the only choice here, and he was perfectly set up for the role. Wapol has an existing connection to the Nefertari family, specifically a reverie-based connection as well. He and Cobra got into a big argument at the last reverie, and Wapol then slapped Vivi because he could. So Oda has now completely flipped that relationship by hosting another reverie where Wapol and the Nefertaris have become accidental accidental allies, which is not just a really fun dynamic, but another one of those moments where you see these small story and relationship threads paying off. Also, the ending of this chapter was surprisingly hilarious. After such a serious set of pages with new powers and all sorts of deaths, I was not expecting this. Because Vivi escapes with Wapol and there's like a soap opera style miscommunication that makes it sound like Wapol and Vivi are running away together, as if it's some sort of passionate love affair. All of which comes to us courtesy of the mind of Cinderella. And in case you've forgotten who she is or never knew who she is literally the Miss Universe of the One Piece world, considered to be one of the most beautiful women alongside Boa Hancock and now Shirahoshi. And Wapol married Miss Universe after becoming a successful businessman, which he did by eating garbage and then shitting it out into a new revolutionary metallic compound. And I'm very interested to see where this goes, because this would leave Cinderella as the sole monarch of the evil Black Drum Kingdom. And I imagine that she could hold quite an active grudge against Vivi and her allegedly unfaithful husband. There was also this part where Vivi was just chilling with CP9. I mean, I say chilling, yet she'd been kidnapped, but the gravity of that situation didn't seem to stop friendly conversation. Noticeably absent from the Cypherpole room are Rob Lucci, Kaku, and Spandam. Lucci is particularly interesting because he was the one who first encountered and assumedly captured Vivi, and I was just waiting for Vivi to say something like, "Hang on, aren't you the guys that the Straw Hats beat up that one time?" Because she follows news, Vivi would know that. But more news for us. Sai and Leo proudly claiming to be part of the Grand Fleet after assaulting Charlos is amazing. I still don't think this is the great incident we've been waiting for, but the Grand Fleet are continuing to build that notoriety. And hearing about Fujitora was also pretty funny. As expected, he did the whole, "Whoops, did my meteor cause just enough chaos for the Revolutionary Army to free all those slaves?" Ha, silly me. Which apparently led to a bout of fisticuffs between Green Bull and Fujitora, which I imagine only further distracted Green Bull from actually doing something to try and apprehend either the Revolutionary Army or the escaped slaves. Whatever the case though, this reunion is happening. Monkey D. Luffy and Nefertari D. Vivi. At some point, she is definitely coming back to the crew because her responsibilities now far eclipse the singular nation of Alabasta. And I, for one, absolutely cannot wait. But I will because I don't have another choice.